we've had some experiences, just let's just say that. Because every committee here forwards, no matter what committee, is doing it live.
Okay.
So it's being video.
I'm going to ask you to explain those rules.
We've had some experiences, just let's just say that. Because every committee. Okay, you're good to go.
Good afternoon.
There's always an echo.
I'll call the meeting now to order. I have approval for the July 15th PFAD minutes. Somebody want to approve it?
I approve.
Approval?
You vote on me better.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, they're approved. I want to jump ahead and I want to go into some of the activity on the schoolhouse and cupola status. I've had a few meetings with a carpenter. We've gone over there on Sundays and looked at the schoolhouse, and needless to say, it's deplorable. If it's still standing in another year, we all should be grateful for that. But what has come up since then, and I've talked to Mike about this, is that considering that we have no say in anything that happens with that schoolhouse or cupola, absolutely none. Okay, we should not be getting involved in any activities regarding on-site inspections and going in there.
So I'd like to clarify that a little bit. So just so that you know, so it's on private property. It is really at this point owned by Kelly's Country Store, which makes it very difficult for any public money funding to go to it. Although the state does do some, but when talking to our grant writer, it sounds like it's highly improbable we'll get approved, and it's basically essentially a wasted effort. So our ability to use public funds is very low likelihood. Now, could we support some kind of a fundraiser or something like that? That's something we could do, but town funds probably will not be going towards renovating that. There is an agreement, just so that everyone's clear though. I mean, is there a benefit if we were to put some effort into a fundraiser? There could be a benefit in the fact that let's just say Kelly Country Store goes bankrupt tomorrow. There's a contractual agreement that upon, let's say they vacate it and leave the island, that both the cupola and the schoolhouse would become town possessions, and we would be able to remove them from the property and relocate them. So there is a benefit to doing a fundraiser, but getting public funds at this point is highly improbable.
Okay, thank you. But I'll just spend any time or effort in that at the present time. Just I think we should find something else to spend our time doing. But I am deeply concerned about the condition of both of those. Carpenter told me, he said, another year, he said, the cupola completely rotted, totally rotted. He said, if you try to move it, he says, it's going to collapse. It's going to fall over. And the schoolhouse, underneath the footings and everything in the schoolhouse are the same way. I'm concerned about the exposures to the electrical that's in there. That's Kelly's problem. I'm not going to make any comments on that at all, but I would encourage great caution with regard to it. Like when I went there, there was a 45-foot long extension cord to provide some form of electricity for that building, while the other outside receptacles are all exposed and wide open. Be careful if you go in there. But for the committee, what I want to say this is that when we looked in there, we found a bunch of school registers that went back to 1898 and 1900 of all the students that attended in all their courses and all their grades. They were left wide open, flopped on the floor, the pages falling out and they're just laying on the floor.
That was for that particular schoolhouse?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Was it even Grand Island?
It's Grand Island Schoolhouse, yeah,
Schools.
absolutely,
Okay.
yeah. And I just think if maybe somebody could put a smile on her face and see if Kelly would be willing to donate those to the Historical Society. I
But
mean,
how do we do that? You
I
know,
don't
like
know.
go in and say, oh, I heard that there's these books that were laying on the floor and somehow got up on the shelf.
Use your
and-
imagination.
I would go more of the approach of, we heard you have these books. Is there any chance, you'd be willing to donate it for the town historic preservation or for
I
historical
might add if
society?
you
Or
can get in the building, because the building was just, showcases were just thrown in there. Apparently he's putting new showcases in the store and all you can't,
He's using it
there's
for
no room to
storage.
change your mind, and it's just filled with store cases and other things that he's filled it up with. But among them, when we were in there, we spotted these books on the floor, and they were 1889 and 1901, and all the students and all their grades, and there's some real life history there. Who are these people? Be a lot of fun to start tracking them, to see who they are, where they went, what's happened to them. But as far as I'm concerned, if they're still there, it'd be a miracle. If somebody because the door is wide open, it's not even locked. Just walk in.
Did you just walk, how did you get it?
Just walked in.
So you just showed up,
Yeah, I
parked the car,
wouldn't
and walked
advise
in?
Went
that,
on
because
a
that is
Sunday-
private
on a
property,
Sunday
just so you
morning.
know.
And we just walked in.
But you kind of, didn't you have permission or something for ours?
Well, he told me that we could,
Yeah,
know,
then
we
you could
that
look
we
at,
could, we could
look around.
Oh,
look
okay.
at it, but,
Okay.
Okay, well, that's good.
so that's what we did, based on what Kelly said, you're welcome to, look around at the place, but it wasn't even locked, which means anybody could go in there. And if there's some enthusiast that loves antiques and old books, I hope the books are still there. There were two, maybe a third one. We couldn't see it in the back. I mean, they were just thrown on the floor. Open face down.
It's his stuff.
I
You know what I'm saying? It's his property. We can't
Right,
march in
Yes, but
there.
we could offer it if you'd like to donate it.
We could
just say there's a strong interest in it.
Yeah.
of something that somebody
Well,
saw.
It's just laying on the floor.
Yeah.
It should be donated.
If you got some kid you want to take over there to buy some candy and say, tell them who you are, by the way, can we take my.
I nominate Jody to do that smiling face to see if he'd be willing.
I'll
to
go with you,
How
contribute
can
it.
you tell that smile?
I go with you.
As a town historian, that could be. Okay.
And you just heard about this and you want to verify it. And if
Okay.
you'd be willing to donate them, we would accept them for historical.
And, just to keep them in good, keep them safe while we're determining exactly how the schoolhouse will be used in the future, if we're gonna, exactly what we're gonna do with it, because obviously these are smaller things that could be stored and somewhere safer. And
It's really part of the story of the schoolhouse too, so.
Mhm.
yeah.
And as Joe said, he's not, once you got the document, you could actually see what schoolhouse it actually is, who knows where these might have come from. There's probably all kinds of cool information.
I'd like to make a motion that Jody be designated the person to write a letter or present in person the wishes of the Preservation Board that the documents be donated to the town of Grand Island.
I will go there.
We need a second.
Sure.
I second it.
Now we can talk.
Discussion, anything, discussion, anything.
And then you vote.
Okay, if there's any more discussion on that? I think I've here the point that it's something that I think is of real interest to us and the Historical Society. And I'd like to see it get preserved before it gets damaged or taken by somebody else.
Even the town historian might want them.
I have a question. If the building is in terrible condition and it has, and I went down and looked at it, Joe, after you called. And there are electrical lines that are unsafe that are running in and out of the building, and there are dangerous conditions for people who may be going in there. What is the responsibility of the town zoning office?
It's really the owner and his liability. Once the building's been approved, unless of course they're doing new electric work. I mean,
But who would have approved an outside electrical line running from the building over to the
Jim, that's
schoolhouse?
why I brought this up, that I really don't feel this committee, which is Grand Island, should be implicated in anything that could lead to a potential lawsuit or somebody being injured. He said, well, you guys are part of it. Why didn't you fix it? Why didn't you do this? We want to be careful what we're doing with that. And that's why I say, hands off. But you're right, June. I mean, when she said the wire's running out, I know somebody's gonna go in there, fall through a floorboard or one of those cabinets, tip over on them. My God, it's a,
There's no legal authority though for code enforcement to go in proactively walk into someone's private property and do electrical inspections. That just doesn't happen.
But this, Mike, is a commercial property. I mean, doesn't the state have rules and regulations about the safety of a commercial property if it has customers in there? I mean, aren't there ways of looking at that property and saying to him, look, this doesn't meet code. And if you're going to utilize this building as a draw for commercialism, for tourism, you really need to do some work on this building. I mean, it would seem to me if the town doesn't have any teeth in the zoning laws to be able to do something like that, then we need to be looking at putting some teeth in it.
what about the building
You
inspector?
know,
Yeah, no, legally, we would have no ability to do that though. So I mean, legally, we don't have that kind of
Work for the
authority.
building inspector,
I don't believe,
be able to
pretty sure.
stop by and look at that.
Pardon me?
Wouldn't the building inspector, you know, if I,
Only if they're in construction. I mean, we don't go and just do spot inspections
Okay.
for something that's been around for 20 years or 50 years or 100 years. There would have to be reasonable cause for whatever. Or even then, I'm not so sure. For electrical, I'm not sure that that would be their role. Mary, what are your thoughts on that?
I would think if it's public assembly, that could move it up, you know, if they're going to actually use it, if they're using it for storage, probably not. It's probably more than what you said, but I mean, it's not my area.
is there a question that could go to the town attorney?
Yeah, I mean, how do we even know that there's a concern? I mean, were we legally there? Were we trespassing at the
Well, I mean, I
time?
think Mary and I could attest to the fact that it certainly wasn't, it wasn't very safe the year that we were there, and they had this open house thing going on, and llamas in the backyard and pumpkins in the front yard, and the two of us in the building that were people going in and out, and you know, the building was in pretty bad shape then. And I'm not sure that
Yeah, I
it was
don't think
appropriate. for it
that's
to
any
be
code
open to the
enforcement concerns though that you identified at that time, right?
Yeah, we wouldn't know. That was
No,
when
we
we
weren't
were,
doing that.
right, we were.
We
busy
weren't
talking
looking for
about
it, but
history.
then,
Yeah.
you know, maybe this year is our option if they are having their fall thing again and opening it up to the public. Might give us.
it's
an
only a
opportunity
guess, but I suspect that the mainline power has been cut off in the house. And I say that because why would he be running extension cords from the building? So he probably had the power shut off because he,
So there might not even be a rest there.
you know, he didn't want to pay for it. He recognized that this could be a problem,
Yeah,
and they shut it off. So I don't, that's just a guess. I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you recall too, or Sharon, you were there? I don't even recall lights. I mean, it was,
I don't think we had
it was
lights on.
daylight and it was
I don't think
small.
we used any. of
Yeah, I
it.
can't, I'm not
They did bring a
remembering.
fan in for us, and that got plugged in someplace.
Oh, okay, I have not remembering. that.
Or it was a heater.
And I
Oh,
can't
the
remember
fan or
the heater
heater, I
there
think
in
it
the
was a
winter
heater.
time. Just a space heater here.
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
Oh, that was a, yeah.
Used to those nice dry Christmas trees, right?
Yeah.
Well, back. Well, I don't think Kelly's are gonna move on it, so.
Does the fire company on Grand Island ever do inspections?
No.
Nicole, you're involved with them. What do you think?
no,
Thanks for asking, but no, I agree with Mike. If it doesn't fall under a specific code or obviously a specific project that's being worked on where improvements need to be assessed, it doesn't typically happen, no.
We need more teeth in it, wouldn't it?
It's a double-edged sword because of property rights and everything else. I don't think you want your government to be that interventional.
I don't know. I just think it seems frustrating as a board
to be here to preserve the history of Grand Island and not have any way of doing it unless somebody will allow us to kiss them on the cheek and say, gee, we love your property. Would you
So we gotta
please?"
maintain good public relations
Oh
with
my
these
God.
folks.
Well,
Because
I-
this is like, this really is a case of, we have little to no influence, so it's really, the better relationship we can build with these folks, the more apt we're gonna get somewhere with them, if you know what I mean.
Well, I bring this up because, we could take possession tomorrow or 50 years from now, we don't know what. But the carpenter has explained to you. He said it is
Rough
going
shape.
to cost twice as much as when I looked at it a year ago.
Yeah,
He said it's unthinkable. He said it, like you just touch the wood and it's just all right.
well, I think our options are really, we could do a fundraiser, get the whole town maybe involved somehow, or like you, I think said, Joe, accept that whatever he does with it, if we can have influence and ask him to see if he can do some maintenance on it, otherwise we may just have to accept the fact that it's being, it's just deteriorating over time.
Again, I had something else, but I won't bring that up. But what if it does collapse and all fall down? And then
That's a song, isn't it?
it becomes ours.
What about that? What was it about?
I don't know.
Ring around the rosy?
Yikes.
Oh, I'll fall down. Yeah.
Do we send him a thank you if that happens?
It was about to play again.
If he hands us a pile of rubble?
The rosy. Ring
Yeah,
around the
come and
rosy.
get it, right? You don't have to accept it.
Okay, well, I just wanted to let you know that the carpenter is kind of throwing the towel on, because we were gonna get estimates and of high, low, midpoint costs of renovation, and I said, forget it. Don't even think
It
of
might
it.
be cheaper just to build a new one.
Okay,
We'll concentrate on one that's in better shape. If there's, like, if Nicole and Dave have one, we're going into it.
Let them.
Yeah, yeah.
okay. And the third thing, as you can see, Carolyn is continuing to be our secretary. Thank goodness for that. And along with that, I want to bring up that I've asked Mike to be relieved of the chair on December 31st.
What?
Yes. So,
Can't do that.
Yeah.
We didn't have that in
when
Yeah,
I
is
said I
that
said I
on the
would do it,
agenda here?
I would do it to the end of the year after we lost Bill Cook,
the,
and it's been a year and a half. And
Okay.
we got a few months to talk.
Mike?
As of when, Joe? as
Through
of
the end
when?
of the year.
December,
So new appointment in January is what we're looking
Well, we
for.
were supposed to reappoint anyway, aren't you, in January?
Yes. Oh, I don't know. I
Is
don't
this-
know if
We a
Joe,
lot, who appoints this chairman? I might have that.
John Whitney would do the appointment.
Of the chairman for this committee.
Yeah. Does that, if you ask that way, does that mean he can just randomly pick someone around the circle here?
We don't show
Well,
up.
that's why I love it.
I don't show up.
Here, John, here's 5 straws.
okay, and I want to go on the last article under buying, and that's the future of our heat pad meetings with regard to them being virtual or live or meetings. I received this memorandum from Rhonda Deal, and I read it and tried to figure out what was said. And I interpreted it in such a way that I said, well, that doesn't seem right. So I called her, and she called back and said, Joe, she says, I'm confirming to tell you that your meetings do not have to be virtual. Okay, and I took that out of context, and that is not correct. I'm gonna let Mike explain the rules, because he's explained to me. and-
Yeah, so
and-
So what you got wrong there is, I think she said, what she should have said is, as per open meetings law, Cuomo expired the ability to vote virtually. So the only way we can have a quorum is in person. The only way that we can have a legitimate vote that counts is in person
Right.
with a quorum of, what do we have? We have 7 active members,
We
right?
need 4.
So we would need 4. So we need at least 4 active members here. Now, if someone wants to join by phone, we're always going to do Zoom. The town board has decided long before this, long before Como expired anything, that all our advisory boards, all our committees will be on Zoom going forward, available to the public whenever they want. And that's great for transparency and everything else. So all meetings are going to be virtual. As long as we have a quorum, we can have in person, we can have a vote. If someone wants to still attend the meeting, but let's say they're in Hawaii and they want to attend the meeting, they can attend. They just are not a vote that would be recognized if we were voting on a particular topic. However, they can contribute to the conversation. They just can't be a counted vote.
Like, for example, if we vote on something right now, Nicole can vote.
Correct.
Okay, she must be present at the meeting to vote. Okay, thank you, Mike, for that.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to Councilman Mike Petting. Updates on the solar project.
So the solar law, we reviewed, the town boards reviewed what the attorney provided us. So it's a total rewrite. It's actually not a rewrite. We deleted the original law and it's a total brand new law that that they've developed for us. That was voted to go out into committee. So it's going to go, it went to the planning board. The conservation board started to review it last night. They're going to review it some more on September 2nd. And planning board is going to be reviewing it, whatever the following Monday after the 2nd is. So it must be the 9th. And then it's going to go back to the town board. I believe on the 7th, which is a Tuesday, not a Monday, is our next town board meeting. And that is when the public hearing is occurring.
And can you tell us what the main difference is going to be?
Everything, in the sense that, I mean, it's a total rewrite of the law. So now there's better defined setbacks. Like, for instance, if you have a main residence, the setback is 1,000 feet from the road, basically, at that point. And then there's a lot of setbacks, the definitions, 500 there, 200 there. So you'd have to read the law.
So tighter.
Yeah, so more definition as far as setbacks relative to the proximity of the solar panels and fencing and everything else, right down to everything, the way in which shielding is put in, whether it's a berm or a solid hedge that's 14 feet tall. That's one of the requirements, and or a berm or some combination of that, so that it's properly screened so you really can't see it from the residences.
Nice.
To how it's located relative to a wetland or a creek bed, which is 100-foot setback. So it's got to be 100 feet away from a creek bed or wetland. Can't turn that off. It's the fire thing. And many other things like that. So it's a line of credit before a bond was allowed, which is hard to enforce, but a line of credit is a more reliable means by which for the decommissioning cost, to have the proper funding to decommission in the event that the place goes bankrupt or what have you. So many different aspects has changed as far as the law goes. So that's being reviewed right now, public comment on September 7th, and moving forward from
Is
there.
this comparable to other towns?
It's very similar to some surrounding towns, like the town of Rush. We actually looked at their law. We looked at the town of Lewiston's law. And these are the folks that wrote both of those laws. So we kind of similar to that. Not as, if you think of Lewiston, they have much more open space and much bigger open space. I mean, hundreds of acres, hundreds and hundreds of thousands. So, some of the restrictions have to take that into account. We're not likely to have what's called a tier 4 solar farm, which is greater than 30 acres. So we've actually included a restriction that we will not have tier 4 unless a waiver is provided by the town board.
Okay.
So the maximum size at this point, unless a waiver is provided, is 30 acres as far as the maximum. Whereas Lewiston, where they have lots of, hundreds and hundreds of acres, they could have a tier 4 solar farm. And right now, most of what's on the books that people are interested in, which is there's like 4 solar farms being considered right now. None of them are even close that they're greater than 30 acres. So things of that nature. So right now, the timeline we're on is it's going to get reviewed by the planning board on the, not the, so the 6th, 7th, the 15th. So that's the second Monday of September, and right around the beginning of October is about the time frame where we want to approve it. Our drop dead date is the 19th of October. So the moratorium expires. We've done an extension. We did a 3-month extension. It expires on the 19th of October. So we want this thing tied up, wrapped in a bow, and approved by the 19th at the latest. But it's progressing pretty well. I think, we took a lot of feedback from the developers, from neighbors of the solar farm, from folks that actually own property where a solar farm is going to be, and the general public. And I think we incorporate a lot of the feedback into the law. So I believe it'll be one of the better laws in New York. So, good.
Thank you, Mike.
And then what else was Long Road on here? So Long Road, so we received a draft scoping document from them for the environmental assessment that they're proposing. So they're proposing, this is the things we're going to cover. Now, we've sent it to the planning board and to the conservation advisory board to look at what they're suggesting and to give feedback. It's missing this, add this, consider this, things of that nature. As well as it's going to then be advised to the town board, who has their own list. And, we don't want to influence the planning board or the conservation board. I have a pretty long list of things that I want to consider to include in that scoping document for things to consider. And so we're going to get that feedback sometime after the 15th of September, which is when the planning board will end up giving our feedback after that, because they'll be considering it on the 15th. If that's the second Monday of
Actually, it's the 13th.
13th of, okay.
Yeah, Monday the 13th.
Yeah, 6 + 7 is 13. Thanks. So that's when the planning board will be reviewing it. We then will consolidate their feedback, and the town board will decide on what the actual list is. That we agree with that, disagree with that. We have these other 10 things that we want to consider, and then we're going to feed that back to the developer. Is probably what the ultimate outcome should be as far as what the scoping document should include. So that's the scoping document for the environmental assessment. What things need to be considered in order to get approval for it.
So they're still not near approval.
No. So it's still an early draft coming from the developer. Now it's the town's turn to have input into that. I would guess, sometime in October, it'll be settled or finalized. Late October for the scoping document. Any questions? And there's other things going on. Rivertown, it's called, is a development that's being considered that's on about, it needs to be 25 acres. I heard they bought 3 more acres in order to be a PDD. They're looking to rezone it. And the property is Webb Road, Baseline, and Grand Island Boulevard. So that block, I believe it's the block right behind Marston's. And I can't remember the breakdown, but it's quite a few residential and apartments and a little bit of mixed use, some commercial activity that'll be in that block of land there. So the town right now is being presented with a proposal to rezone it from, I believe it's R1 and R1D and central businesses. So CBD, so central business. There's 3 different zones to make that all into a PDD, which gives them some flexibility, which allows mixed use and some other. They probably would have some variances for heights as well. So that's up before the town as well right now.
Is that something that the preservation board should be looking at because of the old dairy? Is that in that project?
I'm unfamiliar with the old dairy. Where's that located?
No, is it too far up?
Oh, you're talking about Mesmer's?
Yeah,
No, this parcel, did you say Webb, Green Island Boulevard baseline?
In baseline?
they're cutting down the trees already. There's quite a swath of trees.
that
that have
spot
already
too?
been cut out between
Oh, you're
the
between Lawrence
Parkway
Daily,
and
yeah,
baseline on Love Road.
that's South Point.
So where is this?
Sorry,
I'm
baseline
sorry.
and
This
Old
is
Love
behind
Road.
Marston's.
Yeah, no,
north
this is
of
another
Webb.
development.
This doesn't have anything on the property.
Oh,
Behind Dunkin'
okay.
Donuts.
They're cutting near where the dairy was. That's why I'm asking. I
Yeah.
thought, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought that's what we were talking.
Yeah, so no, this is, think Webb Road. So think,
Across from
Over-
St. Stephen's,
Yeah.
little, that
That's where it's-
general
The
area.
end of Hill, I owned it for a while.
so think of where Marston's is, kind of behind that. Webb Road to baseline. Fairly big development there. And they're looking to rezone that, so that's the first thing. The town is not obligated to approve the rezoning. But, you know, obviously, we'll be looking at it and seriously considering it. So there's that going on, and then there's rumblings about the old Lighthouse Point development, which backs up to, what is it, Riverwoods? Timberlink, thank you. Yep. And East River Road and Whitehaven, so that block there.
We need more traffic on Whitehaven. There's no getting around that.
Oh, my gosh.
I can barely get out of my driveway now.
Right, well, between South Point, Lighthouse Point, Rivertown, and, you know, if this Longhouse warehouse, we're talking a pretty considerable impact on bridge traffic too.
And
And
town
Heron
traffic.
Point.
I keep worrying about
Happening
that.
too fast.
And
You
then
know, we keep adding things without adding any infrastructure on Grand.
Golf
Avenue.
Course
And
Villas is
the
still being
number of
built
cars is
too.
just getting
A
worse.
lot of
I'm
them,
not exaggerating getting out of my
all
driveway.
those condos
It's not an
around the
exaggeration.
golf
And they
course.
drive
Which
fast.
golf
That's
Oh, they go
ongoing,
60 miles an hour, at least.
by East River and Baseline, or Whitehaven,
I
It's
grew up
always
there.
been a problem.
River Oaks.
Oh,
It
okay.
was 7 houses
Yeah,
beyond
houses
our
are-
house.
Oh, they've been continuing
Years
to
ago,
build
Oh,
there.
okay.
it's
Yeah.
Stony Beach.
Greenside, across from Scenic Woods there,
Yeah.
they were like, there was like 7 of them back there for the
This
longest
is
time.
a
And then all of a
moratorium
sudden,
on building.
they're building them like crazy.
We're turning into Amherst.
I know, and we were not gonna do that.
We are turning into Amherst.
I really think we need a moratorium on all buildings.
Mike, even though I misunderstood the property, if we could go back to this Love Road thing, I just wanted to ask if any of you have driven there, they've cut down an enormous number of trees and it's like, I don't know, 3 driveways wide or something, and there was supposed to be a path going through there. That's what I understood that they had
It's
asked.
like 100 feet deep and.
Yeah, well, now it's, you know, I don't know. I mean, I just drive by.
This is Love Road,
However,
you can see
yeah,
it
it's
from
Love Road, and I'm just wondering if we should be concerned about the old creamery that was back, wasn't that the area where it was in that
It was on
location?
Whitehaven.
Then
By
where
Stony
was,
Point.
and Mesmer's, we're not counting that as anything historic. So, okay, I just wanted to be sure of the location.
So that's a project that I didn't mention, which is South Point Phase 1 is only a trail. So it's no construction other than a trail, but it's a pretty big trail. It's gonna be a public trail. That'll be about a mile long. It runs right tight to the wetlands, but doesn't impede or go into, and they sorted that out with the DEC. And my understanding is that's what they've started to do the clear cutting for. What they told us last night was the path would be 5 feet wide. They would clear just a little bit beyond that. And they mentioned about 20 feet total for the width. They would try and limit the amount of clear cutting, but obviously, you know, it'd be 20 feet wide, let's just say, a clear cutting and a mile long. So maybe it's the mile long that you're seeing that's giving you the impression that
No,
it's more
it's
than
gotta
20
be-
feet wide.
It's gotta be 300 feet
Across from Love
across the
Road.
front.
I mean, I'm 5 feet tall, Mike, and let me tell you, this is a lot more cut than.
I'm just going by what they
If
said.
I go over there,
I've heard about-
yeah,
I'd say it's
gonna be like
So I need to go down and see
Yeah.
what's going on.
And
I
it's
was
gotta
able
be
to
about
go.
100 feet.
10 or
Watch-
20 of
You
me.
can watch
I
the
really
Conservation
did.
Advisory Board right at the beginning last night, so it's on the Grand Island YouTube page. And you'll hear what they told us. Now I gotta see if their words match up with what they're
Yeah.
actually doing. And they did say that that was them doing the cutting over there.
I was just amazed because it just happened in the last
Yeah,
few days.
I couldn't believe how much.
And I
had been
drove by
destroyed.
one day and there was nothing, and then I drove by a couple days ago, and I thought, what is going on?
Huh.
here?"
And
So,
actually, when I leave here tonight, I'm gonna,
yeah,
just based on your description, I had not heard it. I saw on Facebook, oh, there's clear cutting occurring,
yeah.
but I couldn't dispute that it was what they were saying last night.
Quite wider than 5 feet that they cleared there.
Oh, it's a lot.
For which also
meeting?
concerned about
The YouTube page.
So last night it was Conservation Advisory Board,
okay.
and that's what you'll see it right on the YouTube page. And it's the first thing up. And there's pictures and everything, so you'll see it right on your screen, and you'll see where the path is, and
I want to ask you, Mike, do you know if they're cutting a path on Whitehaven, right along Buckhorn State Park? It starts at the bicycle path and it goes all the way up to the Stickle subdivision. They've almost like every other night, there's a pile of cattails and seaweed that they're pulling out of the creek or out of the river somewhere, piling off. The town comes and picks them up and removes them. They've cut a path that I would say is maybe 4 feet wide, and it's got to be,
so it's a path.
it's like 600 feet long.
Huh.
They mowed it all down.
Does it look like the trees are being uprooted too?
No, they
Okay.
cleared all the
'Cause I
debris, all
heard
the
they're
rock.
actually uprooting trees for their
They-
water project.
Is that what it is?
Or
But
the
it
root
looked like
balls
maybe
for-
a sidewalk was being run through there.
Huh. We have not heard of it. At least I haven't heard about
They
it.
cut it all, they cleared all the rocks out.
Is this just a
cut the
curve or
grass
how
down.
recent was
No, the
this?
grass is this high again. It came back that fast, but,
Can you see it from the road?
oh yeah, it's only 3 feet from the road.
It's in Buckhorn Park.
I would say the property is Buckhorn Park, because the last house in the subdivision is the last one that Sticker could build. And then from there on in, I understood that from there all the way up to the bike path is state property.
Huh.
And there's no building, and nobody could build on it, because you go back 100 feet, you're in the river, practically.
So I would think
Okay.
if they were building a path, they would have.
So
told the
it's like
town.
a sidewalk. They cleared it all up for a sidewalk.
Huh.
And
You got
all of a sudden they stopped again.
That one too.
a scenic tour of Grand Island.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Usually the state would tell the town about that, so I have not heard about that one.
I wonder if they're just checking out invasive species or something, I don't know.
Or
There's some signs of
Ash
Buckhorn about
trees.
that.
I don't know,
There's
I
so
just
many
wondered-
ash trees in Buckhorn.
The Stickle put the last house that he could
So
on that
so
property.
sad to see.
And I wonder if that
It's so
requires
ugly.
him to
Yeah.
put in a sidewalk all the way to the end. That might
But
be a
that
condition.
loss of mature hardwoods provides food down below, which is actually good for the wildlife, even though it doesn't pleasantly look as good for us, but those mature hardwoods with the leaves underneath and it's clear, actually is bad for wildlife. So now the sun's getting down and stuff is growing and berries and forage and everything else. It's actually pretty good for the deer and everything.
We're right in my yard eating my flowers. I
Oh, yeah.
watched them. I stood there and watched them.
Said, why did I bother playing?
Yeah,
The 24 of my neighbors
my
are provided.
6-foot fence
Kill
just
every
doesn't
one.
slow them down in one dead either.
Yikes.
I'm sorry, it's
For all
my
Six
that,
foot high
camera, I'll
fence.
tell you what I-
And they
They don't even bat an eye, jumps over that.
I think you got everybody up like this.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, they were
Deer ate
so
them as far as they
fierce
could
that
be.
they took him
Poor
and
Lance
eating my flowers.
must have killed every one of them.
Oh, man.
That's all I have, which is more than enough.
Um,
I regret to inform you of all this construction that's occurring on the island.
Yeah.
That's.
And you're talking thousands of people.
Mike, your last topic here, your discussion with the town attorney regarding our property, Kelly property rights, I think we pretty much
Already
covered
covered
that. It's simple, we have none,
We killed that one.
so that takes care of that. I just want to make that point clear.
Yep.
Okay, June Crawford, you're on.
Okay, can we postpone from August? It's so hot and humid.
Oh, dear, it might not be go back there.
It's the next Wednesday. I've got company all weekend for one thing, so.
It's supposed to be really hot next week.
Yeah.
And humid.
And I
Every day,
think- And the
yes.
humidity.
I got one thing to say, in 3 to 4 months from now, you're gonna wish it was.
Oh,
hot
I
and
know we
humid.
are. I love the heat, but not when I'm trying to do anything.
Do you have another proposed date?
September.
September?
Yeah.
September
It's
can
supposed
be
to be
beautiful.
88 on Wednesday.
I wonder,
Yeah.
well, because the next thing on the agenda is
Traffic-
Nicole
traffic
with some
Yeah.
suggested dates
Oh, maybe we get.
for
Nicole
their
first.
properties. So could we skip over to that
Yeah,
part of the
sure.
agenda
Yeah.
first?
Nicole, we're gonna jump up to you way ahead of the schedule regarding the tour of the Alt Farm and your, your property visits that we had planned.
Yeah, I think the dates we had talked about as potential at the last meeting was Thursday, September 9th or Friday, September 10th. If everyone's good with Friday, September 10th at 4:30 p.m., that works for myself and Dave.
On the 10th.
That sounds good.
Does that work for everyone? We're done with, work commitments by that point, so
What do you think,
Good
4:30?
for me.
4:30.
We do.
4:30, yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, because it's the
Sounds
10th.
good to me.
Is that a Friday?
It is, but it's not the third
It's
Friday.
not the third
Oh,
Friday.
that's right.
Our meeting's the 17th.
That's right. Okay.
Well, in that case then, Sharon, if we do go there on September 10th, do you have any dates in mind for doing this? If we postpone?
I have nothing in September.
So the only problem with that, because that's the tour of Ferry Village,
Yes.
the ice cream place is closed then, isn't it?
We don't want to go there anyway. The bees are so bad.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah? Oh,
You can't
no.
get near it.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
you're kidding.
No, it's hot. Even before you order your food,
Hornets.
they're swarming around you.
Huh.
And really bad.
We had some traps out when we were there
They-
last week, and there were certainly bees, but nothing more than.
Well, they had
around
traps
now.
out the day I was there, and before we even got our food, we were surrounded.
No, well,
Well, we ate there.
Maybe there was a breeze, because we were there in a hot day.
But we don't absolutely have to get the hot dogs.
No, we
stand.
don't.
That's-
Well, that's true, we could.
There are certainly other places we could.
It's gonna close as soon as school starts, so it doesn't really matter.
yeah.
Well, Sharon, you're the one that's going to give the tour, so why don't you give us a date?
We assume that August is out then, right, Sharon?
What day do we want?
Yeah, if that's, if she doesn't want to do it, I mean,
Yeah.
I can't give the
No.
tour, so it's up there, Sharon.
Is it September?
September, or we could do it after our meeting here.
But
Do I meet
17th.
here and go after that on the 17th?
that works.
Sure. Okay, so 17th.
September 17th?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's gonna be beautiful that day.
so our
There you
meeting
go.
is here at 3. What time would you want to start, Sharon?
Well, after this meeting,
We just leave.
4:30. Oh, I see. To
we
go,
just go there.
Shoot for
it's going to be
4:30.
getting darker,
Yeah, but it won't be that dark. It only takes like an hour.
I know, because I was trying to read sales in the dark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Oh, it's okay.
The other thing on my
Did
list
Nicole
here,
do all of that okay?
The 10th at 4:30.
Is Nicole very okay?
did you hear it, Nicole?
For Ferry Village?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll see what I can do, but obviously keep it scheduled. Thank you.
okay.
This historic area designation path, I see you have it with question marks on the agenda.
Yeah.
What that is, I think what we're referring to there is that when we discussed Ferry Village, we were talking about the possible connection between Riverly and Ferry Village so that we would
Yeah.
work with the Parks Department so that there would be some connection there. And the path would be somehow designated to go from Ferry Village over to
There
Riverly.
is a path
Well, it isn't, but I
on
mean,
the
that
river, on the river. There's
Yeah,
a
we
path
got
on
it
the
there.
river.
well, I mean, but I think that they're talking about incorporating that into the whole idea of
Oh,
historic Ferry
because we
Village.
also are
And then
scalding.
expanding that to include Riverly as part of any walk that somebody is doing.
And we have
that way.
Spalding Trail too. Yeah, true.
Anyway, that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's all there was to that one.
Okay.
Obviously, we won't be doing any looking for any funds for this, but
What I did do, thinking we're gonna do it this week, that doesn't matter because I've got an error typing in here, I realized anyway, so you just have to ignore it. I put this on yellow paper because I know how easy it is to lose white paper. But if you pass this around, these are some questions that I have that I thought we might want to be thinking about. Nicole, I'm sorry, I will send you this in an email so that you will get this. But these are questions that I put together that I thought we ought to be considering, or at least ideas we ought to be considering as we do the tour of Ferry Village. Because if we just go there and walk around and don't do that, we're just gonna be right back where we started from. So I'm just trying to make sure that we accomplish something along with seeing the historic places. So I think we've started certainly on this first one, identifying the buildings, but now I was just checking to make sure that we could go to the town clerk's office to be sure that we have the correct name, legal name for the owner of any of the properties there that we want to particularly look at and consider for trying to talk owners into doing something if we could. As we learned in our little lessons that we took here, our workshops, it would be a good idea if we had some idea of what we all think the place should look like after we talk about historic districts. You know, what is it that we're after over there so that we don't have 10 different ideas about what Ferry Village should look like once we do this. So if you think about that when we're going over, and we all know that there are going to be roadblocks, like Mike says, we're going to have to use a lot of persuasion to get people to agree to this kind of thing. So I think we need to identify what would be the major roadblocks for this and what can we do about that kind of thing. What techniques do we need to use to get support for it as in a historic district? And then as I think about it, because you know, I'm serving on the long range planning committee and I keep listening to everything that they're doing about ecotourism. And I'm thinking, okay, this fits into that. I got that part of it. But as a whole for Grand Island, is there anything else that we want to be thinking about? What would this do for the island as a whole, besides providing a path to get to Riverly? You know, there's a small bit of property there that the town owns that isn't really being utilized at this point. Do we have any ideas about that and what could be incorporated into that? Would you want more business down there? I mean, this is the other stuff that I think we need to be considering as we're talking to people about what it is we would want to do down there. And then they're talking about waterfront revitalization. And I assume that little section down there of land that's not being used would fit into that idea. But also, if you're looking at all of the marinas and that sort of thing down there, I don't know what the rules and regulations are, but I guess, you know, we probably have to be looking at the laws that are on the books already for Grand Island to see, are those places, you know, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are there any laws on the books that would, you know, help us to kind of help clean up the area down there? Or just where are we going with this? And I'm not saying one way or the other what we should be doing. I just wanted to raise some questions because I want this to be a productive tour, I guess is what I'm thinking. So
Is there a list of what you have, the properties that you deem to be historic? So is that something that you could make a copy of for each of us when we go there, and then we could write notes on that kind of thing? We could do that.
maybe everybody should bring a clipboard when we go on the tours.
Yeah.
There's something to write on.
And Sharon, is the list that you have based on the date of their building? Is that kind of what you use for your criteria, or just what information?
Just the information that we have.
All right, because you know, there could possibly be
I'm sure
house
it's
stuff, you know, somewhere in that, how, you know, the house file, whatever that is, but you know,
Right.
stuff has come up along the way.
historical.
You know, we're trying to make that eventually into a comprehensive document that sort of incorporates all these different lists from God knows who over the years. And trying to come up with like a
Yeah.
path for each house, you know,
It'd
putting
be a
things
really
together,
good idea.
verifying what is true and what we can document and then what is more. So that's another, that's kind of one aspect of that listed house to start us off.
Okay.
And then if I might add, I did ask Christiana if she could come with us, and she wasn't able to come that day. So I will
Okay.
send her the new date or talk to her and see if she could come.
Okay.
This is a woman from Preservation Buffalo
Yeah, she
Niagara
could
who did
bring-
our
Yeah.
little tour things here. Something else in my head. Oh, I know, I want to go through some other things, but I want to do it under new business if we could,
Okay,
to bring information back from long range plan. Okay. But other than that, I think that's it.
okay. And we're gonna jump down to Jody. She will tell us all about plaques.
Well, I sent out, if everybody
Mhm.
got that, just the information. I have to check the Nike-based office for more, but I'm going to bring the plaque to Michael tomorrow and give it to him and just say, Mike, you put it up, tell me when it's up, and then I'll come and take a picture of you and the plaque. And then I'll put a paragraph together to describe the property. I'll go over that with you guys, because I know I have some more information.
Don't you want to do that with a bigger group of people, or is he,
He doesn't want
he prefers not
publicity.
to?
It's
No.
not,
Oh.
no.
So I'm thinking if we get
Keep
him,
it limited.
yeah. I mean, that's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
and then in the write-up, we'll put in, if, your home is whatever,
Mhm.
older, interesting, please let us know. And,
What do you think we should do with the schoolhouse?
ooh,
The schoolhouse plaque?
well, we've got 3 elder plaques. That 19, the cupola plaque, 19. So we've got 3 plaques. One is, because Michael's is 1860. We've got the schoolhouse 1866, 1919 for the cupola, and we've got 1935 for the CCC that we did in the camp. So we've got 3 of them sitting there.
That plaque might be a way to get into Kelly's country story, go over and tell them we'd like to hang the plaque, and by the way.
Well, we could, that's the other thing I was going to bring up is,
Discussion.
we have these plaques, we were hoping the places would look good before we put the plaques on them.
Hang him maybe.
Well,
So I could give them to them and say, do you want to put these on? And along
And we'll
with,
take a picture.
yeah, and put on, might as well, what are you gonna do with it in the meantime? I
well, I
mean,
was hoping we'd find some other things from 1919 and 1866.
1935, we got the bridges.
But yeah, I can do that.
okay,
That's fine.
that'll get you in, get your foot in the door,
Mhm,
okay? Thank you, Jody.
mhm.
Is there any more old business that anybody wants to discuss before we go into June's new business?
I just found this version of the preservation law, which I know Mike has said, look it up online, but just regarding the chairperson and vice chairperson of this committee, it's that, and I don't think this got changed along the way, shall be elected by and from voting members of the advisory board. So that's how the town board appoints the members of this committee, based on 4 at-large, the town historian, and 2 members representing the historical society. But the chairperson and vice chairperson are elected from this group.
Is that unanimously elected?
Absolutely.
Now, just curious, can someone volunteer someone and then quickly everybody votes before that person?
When they leave the room.
Or if
There is
someone's
such a thing
absent
as
from the
like-
meeting?
The willingness to actually do the work. As opposed to just sprung on
Details.
you. Yes.
No further than June? You had
Okay,
some new business.
yeah, I want to bring a few things to your attention from the long range planning committee and this waterfront revitalization thing. They sent out a report and they're making some suggestions apparently to the town. And I apologize, I was not at this meeting. I simply downloaded the stuff. I had
Who's they?
the long range planning committee, and then they consult that they have
Oh,
for
sure.
waterfront. So this is the consultant, as I understand it, put this together. I mean, we've been meeting back and forth, and the way this works, which is why you and I, neither one of us knew what was going on in the beginning, is at one meeting, the Long Range Planning Committee meets and they talk about all kinds of issues about long range plans for this and whether they fit into the master plan that's currently in place on Grand Island. The next meeting, the next month, it's the same group, but now they're talking with the consultants about the waterfront revitalization. So the first meeting I went to, and probably then we go to the next one, and you went to one after that, it was like, we were in two different worlds and neither one of us knew what the heck they were talking about.
There were 54.
Yeah, right. So now that I've been going to more meetings, I've kind of, starting to wrap my head around what they're trying to do. But when this consultant from the waterfront came up with all of these suggestions, I mean, I was reading documents and sending back comments and trying to keep up with what was going on. But this is the latest thing that came out. It's just dated the 9th of this month. And I just sort of checked some of these things that I want to bring to your attention. I'm not suggesting we need to do anything, but I just wanted to have everybody aware of what's going on with this. Because as I understand it, this is now being presented or will be presented to the town board for their approval. Because basically what this does is it goes through all of the town laws and then suggests any changes that need to be made to carry out the work of this committee and the work that the consultant thinks needs to be done. So one of the things they have in here, for instance, is they talk about the Architectural Review Advisory Board. And what they want to add, apparently, is when you're looking at building new things, would you look at things such as excessive similarity or dissimilarity of any existing or proposed structure, poor quality of design or materials, inappropriateness of proposed structures or structural changes in relation to the character of the surrounding community? That's why I said
They already consider all that.
No, I was just gonna say, that's the whole architecture review.
You just
board, right?
described their
So-
whole scope and
Right,
purpose.
okay, so this is existing, so no, this is why I brought this one.
Oh,
up.
that's
It's
existing.
And then there's some that they're gonna propose. I'm sorry. let me get clear.
So
Okay.
this is
So,
just, this is existing,
Yeah,
okay.
this is
we have
existing.
that.
So the reason I brought this one up is that it's this inappropriateness of proposed structures or structural changes. So first thing that popped into my head is if we're talking about Ferry Village, this is gonna impact that.
Oh, if
we
you make it a
decide-
historic district.
Yeah, if we decide, that we want to pursue that and make it into a historic district, now we're talking about looking at houses in there, what fits with the historic buildings that are there. You don't want somebody building like on the West River, when they buy up a little house like mine and tear it down and build some,
Yeah.
Yep. You're saying
$6 million
that.
house on the corner on 5 lots. We don't want that in Perry Village, I don't think. So I just wanted to bring to your attention that some of this stuff is already on the books, but we need to be aware of it as we go through this process. The other one is the Conservation Board. And they review applications for use and development of any open space that's listed in an inventory index of all public and private spaces in the town. So if we were going to look at that little space that the town owns along the waterfront, the Conservation Board would also be involved in that. So we just need to, I'm just trying to,
Not very big.
and there's nothing ever simple is what I'm trying to say here, I guess, is that all of
We
these
just said it
things-
impacts other boards.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of these and I'd be glad to, I could talk about them all, but we'd probably be here all afternoon, but I'm going through this one at a time, trying to come up with the things that would impact us. And I'll pull that out so that I can put down what already exists, what they're proposing that we probably ought to consider because we either would be in favor of or not in favor of what they're doing. Once they get this done, then they're talking about putting together, when each of these things comes up, as I understand it, not only that long range planning committee to discuss this before taking it to the town board, but bringing in boards that are impacted by it. So our entire preservation board would be invited to meet then with people from the long range planning committee to talk about any of the impacts that might have on our work.
So I just wanted to let you know that that's what's going on. This is a tedious process, I must say. I get pages of documents. I spend all kinds of time at my desk at home thinking I should be doing my ironing. And instead I'm reading. On my plate.
What's ironing?
I don't know, because I never get to it.
Who does it? My husband every day.
Does he really?
Wow. Every day before work. Or if he works the mornings, he does it the night before.
Oh, my goodness.
His mom taught him.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's basically what I just wanted to bring to your attention. And so that under new business, I will try to, in my free time in the next few weeks here, before our next meeting, I'll try to go through this and then make a list that I can give everybody of which things I think we should be keeping an eye on. But
It sounds like it would help you fall asleep.
there have been many evenings when I'm in my den going, "Oh, do I really care about it?"
Thanks for doing it.
Oh, my goodness. Anyway, that was a joke.
Any further business of any kind? Can I call for a motion for adjournment?
So moved. Second. Oh, you good.
Meeting is adjourned.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.